Good morning.
Hey.
Nice to see you popping in. I always love this part. Catherine, I'm going to make you moderator. Give me 1 second. There we go. There's our friend Danny. Awesome. I just chatted
Good
with Michael in
morning.
a private room, so he should be popping in with us shortly. Hey, Judith, Katie, Joel. Everybody's popping in. This is exciting. Oh, there's Michael Wilson. Come on, he's invited in. Just taking a second here before we get started to do a little bit of inviting in. And while I do, I just want to welcome everybody to this room. This is our weekly Psychedelic Microdosing 101 room with the Flourish Academy. And the Flourish Academy meets 3 mornings a week, always at 9 a.m. Pacific. We meet Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. Wednesdays, we alternate weeks between entheogens and the divine feminine and entheogens and the divine masculine. On Thursdays, of course, is microdosing. And then on Fridays, we have Psychedelics 101, which is a great room that is really broad and wide open for psychedelic topics. And that one is hosted by Danny, who's on stage with me now, and Vanessa. So looking forward to that one. Tomorrow we will have, I'm just looking at the schedule. Oh, it's going to be engaging responsibly with plant medicines with Amanda Ethimo of the El Puente Foundation. So really talking about reciprocity and inclusion and I don't know, Danny, do you want to chime in a little bit more on what's going on tomorrow while we just set up the room for today?
Honestly, Vanessa spoke to her, so I don't really know what's happening with that. But I'm sure, as usual, it's going to be a beautiful room, as it always is at the Flourish Academy.
Yeah, I've talked to Amanda quite a few times. She's quite influential in the psychedelic world as far as like ethical business practices and sacred reciprocity and regenerative business models. And she is in Argentina, I believe it is, working with indigenous peoples there. So it's definitely going to be a great room for sure. And there we have our guest with us, Michael Wilson. So, as I said, everybody, welcome to Microdosing 101. Today we are talking about microdosing Amanita Muscaria. We have a guest with us today who, just disappeared. I think Michael Wilson, who's going to come back in a second. I have to applaud Michael. He just joined Clubhouse a few days ago so that he could come and be with our room. There he is. He's back now. We are part of the Flourish Academy. The Flourish Academy meets 3 days a week. And if you would like to stay in the loop, if you'd like to be part of our community and our family, simply click on the little greenhouse icon on the top left corner of your screen. And the other thing I'd like to encourage you to do is to bring other people into this room. Share this room. You can share it within Clubhouse. You can share it with your individual contacts. There's a little square icon on your bottom left with an arrow pointing out that gives you all sorts of ways to share this room. So if there's anybody in your network, any of your colleagues, friends, family that you think would really benefit from being here today and talking about Amanita Muscaria with us, they'd learn something or they could contribute something, please invite them in, because the more the merrier. The way the room works today is I'm going to have a little chat up here with Michael, and then we are going to invite people up to the stage to participate in the conversation with us, whether that's your questions, your shares, anything that has to do with Amanita Muscaria that our guest can address for you. Welcome to Catherine and Danny, my Flourish Academy co-moderators. Thanks for being here with us today. And I'm just going to quickly go through our disclaimers that really kind of set the circle, open it up so that everybody's on the same page, so that we can keep this as a safe and welcoming place. So we are not licensed medical or licensed mental health professionals. Nothing said in this room is meant to be medical, mental health, financial, business, or legal advice. We don't promote or advocate any illegal activity. In many places, taking and having psychedelics is still illegal, so we're here for education and harm reduction only. This room doesn't tolerate the sourcing of any illegal substances. We're not going to guide you where to get anything that's illegal, so please don't offer, please don't ask. The Flourish Academy is a safe space, free of judgment. We're a community and a family that supports and encourages each other. So with that in mind, please do keep your shares respectful and also respectful of time. We're going to be inviting people up to join us on the stage, and we try to wrap the room by 10:30 Pacific. So you'll have an idea of how many people might be after you that would also like to share. So we do try to get around to everybody that we bring up on stage with us. Finally, before we begin, I would like to take a deep breath and then acknowledge the shoulders upon which we stand. We are grateful to Mother Earth, who holds us in the belly of her womb and who gifts us with sacred plant medicines to expand our consciousness, to heal and to grow. We are grateful to our ancestors, to our elders, to those who have come before us, and to the indigenous peoples of all our lands who have, over time, shared the beauty and the mystery of these plants with us. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Michael Wilson. He is the owner of All Things Amanita. So you can find that at www.allthingsamanita.com, and he is also the owner of Harmony Acres Farms. All Things Amanita is a culmination of high-quality sources of Amanita mushrooms. They source only clean, ethical, and energetically potent Amanita varieties from around the world. And they're super upfront with things like their country of origin, their procedures, their processing, their age and extraction methods. So it's a really, really reliable and ethical source of all things Amanita. And Michael also has a Facebook page, which is Amanita Muscaria Science and Magic, which I just joined this morning right before this call. I think they had like 55,000 members or something. So again, I would say if you're interested after this talk in following up and learning more, I would hop over to Facebook and check out Amanita Muscaria Science and Magic. Michael himself has worked with herbal and fungal preparations since 2016 and spent the last 2 years dedicated to Amanita muscaria. He's worked with various psychedelics since 2010, and with his main passion being Amanita, he has served over 10,000 people, working with wholesale customers, retail customers, and also offering consultations on preparation, use, and integration. Michael, thank you for joining us.
Hey Dana, thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation with y'all.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Our community has been asking for this room. We talked about this earlier. We did have a deep dive once with our friend Avi Esther, but there's just more and more and more to learn. And so we're really pleased to welcome you here. And also, I just want to commend you on being new to Clubhouse and like getting on and figuring it out and being here with us today.
yeah. Yeah, it was funny. Jordan Gruber invited me last week, and now I'm like a speaker. It's pretty funny how it all evolves, right? Um,
It's meant to be.
it's pretty cool though. I know it can get a little chaotic, I guess, but I think it's cool. I know that Clubhouse kind of originated during the pandemic whenever everyone was isolated. So I think it's cool that we have this ability to just have free flow, conversations like this.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely a very, very hot place to be during the pandemic. And we did see some people drop off, but I would say in the psychedelic conversations, they're still really robust on Clubhouse. So yeah, there are a lot of rooms that I really commend and recommend, like a lot of great conversations. So of course the Flourish Academy has, stellar conversations. So
Yeah, you guys
happy
were
to
the
have
first
you.
room I followed.
Oh, amazing. Well, we're really happy to have you here. Let's dive into the conversation. And Catherine, if you want, while I'm chatting with Michael, you can already go ahead and invite people up to the stage who might be interested, just so I'll get an idea of the participation levels as we as
Cool.
we go through the conversation. How does that sound to you?
Sounds great. Will
Um,
do.
Amazing. Awesome. Okay, Michael, Amanita Muscaria. Let's start with mushrooms are mushrooms, right? And psychedelic mushrooms are psychedelic mushrooms, right? Or wrong? Like, how is Amanita different than psilocybin mushrooms?
That's a great question to start with, because a lot of these spaces, people are very familiar with psilocybin, and psilocybin differs from Amanita quite greatly. It's kind of like comparing apples and oranges. In the microdose, psilocybin and Amanita can provide similar benefits, just through different modes of action in the brain chemistry. But psilocybin is serotonergic, and Amanita muscaria's main compound muscimol is GABAergic. So it's a very different experience. Um, Amanita muscaria can be psychedelic, and people would, squabble about, if it's psychedelic or not, but it's really, I think you can have a mind altering experience with Amanita, and it's very different than psilocybin, and but it takes, quite a bit of Amanita to have that kind of experience. But in the microdose, I would say most people who would experience anxiety, maybe with psilocybin, would benefit from Amanita. And it's not super common that people would experience anxiety with psilocybin microdosing, but um, I think that I think that Amanita provides kind of this soothing balm to our nervous system, being a GABAergic compound. Some other GABAergic compounds are alcohol, benzodiazepine, chamomile, lavender. Those and kava. I think kava is also a GABA agonist. I know it works on the GABA pathway. So I just wanted to like highlight that to help the listeners get like what kind of genre of psychoactive is Amanita, because it is in essence like the symbol of a cult. I mean, a cult meaning, hidden in plain sight, esoteric knowledge that is right in front of us. It is the mushroom emoji. It's the Alice in Wonderland mushroom, the Super Mario mushroom. And if anybody were to draw a picture of a mushroom, most of the time they would draw something similar to an Amanita muscaria, a red cap with white spots and a stem. But if you ask people about it, there's a lot of different information that is being shared. So, it's kind of like my personal mission to be a representative of Amanita the best I can. And, keep in mind, I will get things wrong. I'm a human. And I think that for everyone to gather information from multiple sources so that they strengthen their own reasoning skills is like the best way to learn. So, um, and I was a little divergent from like the psilocybin Amanita question, but if you had any, specific questions other than that, like, I think that it's people will come into Amanita thinking it's going to be like psilocybin, and I think it's important to understand that it is quite different, but it can provide some of the similar results just from a different mechanism.
That is very interesting in itself, just that it's GABA synergic rather than serotonergic. I always have problems pronouncing those things. But so, and yeah, like it has been reported, like as you were saying, not overly oops, what do I hear there? I hear something in the background. Not overly, but with people that I work with, and probably Catherine as well, there are people who, yeah, if they suffer from anxiety and they're looking to microdosing um, psychedelics, plant medicines, as a tool to help them work with their anxiety. We do find, like, in some cases it can really increase that anxiety. So learning about this GABA, the way that these work with your GABA, I can't say the word.
Yeah,
It sounds
GABA receptors or GABAergic. Yeah.
yeah, GABAergic. I always have trouble with that ergic, even with serotonergic. But
I know, I
anyways, it
know.
sounds like it sounds soothing. Like it sounds like it's a really calm for your nervous system in comparison to what they may find with psilocybin. And
Mhm.
then you were saying, yeah, like just different reasons and different effects. So, um, what kind of intentions might be really, really well suited for Amanita, besides the anxiousness side, where maybe psilocybin may not be as good for them? What other intentions and what other benefits could people potentially experience through microdosing Amanita?
That's a great question. So with Amanita, typically what people are experiencing with it is relief from anxiety, um, relief from depression, PTSD, just trauma in general. Also, a lot of people have been able to stop various pharmaceuticals with Amanita muscaria, specifically something like benzodiazepines, like Klonopin, Xanax, things like that. I've had a lot of clients wean themselves off of those drugs and using while tapering up with the Amanita microdosing. Um, Also, smaller amount, but people that have alcoholism, um, and then also even things like SSRIs, antidepressants that are serotonergic, and then lastly, opiates. They're dopaminergic. Some people have quit using opiates with Amanita. Um, I think it's providing something, like I said, through a different mode of action, and it can benefit people from different walks of life. And another thing too, I wanted to say is that it's very helpful for people with insomnia. People that have insomnia can take Amanita and instead of waking up 3 4 times a night, they maybe wake up once, or they just sleep for like 8 or 9 hours and they wake up feeling refreshed. I don't hear from people, maybe like one out of 1,000 people might say like I woke up groggy. um, but normally it's like you sleep very deep and you wake up very refreshed and just ready for the day. um, and so a lot of people would maybe seek out psilocybin. It also provides relief from anxiety and depression, PTSD, and can definitely help with addictions. But somebody like myself, for example, because I can only speak from my experience, and anecdotes from others. But with psilocybin, it's like I don't need a whole lot of it to have a um, have a microdose, and then if I have just a little bit beyond that, I will go from that like neutral serotonin level to like excited, and then it goes right into anxious and like
Mm.
overstimulated. And so that's why like Amanita is my jam. I love it. And it takes so much more Amanita to get into like a psychoactive uh effect compared to like psilocybin. Um I mean, it also depends on people and the mushroom and the set and setting, obviously. But I think that from my personal experience, I think it's more accessible. Another thing too is it is completely legal in the United States, except for Louisiana, and that's not really enforced. It's just one of those old antiquated laws. But there are countries in the world where it's illegal. But in America, anybody can go and pick amanitas if they know what they're looking for, or they can buy it from a reputable vendor and start taking it, and they don't have to worry about potentially getting in trouble or getting a fine or something or getting arrested. Um, which is it's sad. I think honestly all entheogens should be legal. The countries where they have experimented with that have lower crime rates and just better societies in general because of it. Less addiction. Um, but yeah, I think I think that highlights most of the effects in those microdoses. One thing too, I just want to say that Amanita can have a cumulative effect. So some people might take breaks from it, maybe for like a week or two, or like even a month after taking it consistently. And but one thing I noticed whenever I heard of two friends trying Amanita before I even considered working with it, was that they had one experience, and weeks later they still had this profound, lingering sense of peace. They didn't have the same anxiety that they were used to, and that intrigued me a lot. So that's whenever I started working with it.
Yeah, such good information there. Yeah, I have not yet experienced microdosing with Amanita, but I tell you what, after this room, I'm getting right on it. And one of the reasons why is that you're talking about it being like a real soothing balm and helping people with sleeping issues, which is like a continuous battle for me.
Hmm.
And I have not found microdosing of any other um, medicines that have actually like had a profound effect or affected. I could tell with that. So just for that case alone, I'm going to be trying it. And then you were talking about like having a cumulative effect and people taking breaks, and then having the lingering kind of benefits of it. Thank you for bringing in some of the stories. Actually, it's so great to hear stories of the benefits that people have actually received. But on that note of taking a break, is it the same as psilocybin mushrooms? Like, do you, what's the protocol and what's the dosage and when should you have breaks?
So those are all great questions, and they vary greatly, depending on multiple things. So one of the first things would be, as far as dosage goes, I think that um, preparation is important to take into consideration. For example, I know that it seems like people that make a tea or a tincture have some kind of you know extracted form, typically need less, and um, people that are just eating the dry caps or the powder, typically I've seen they're taking more of a microdose. Um, and then there's also people that have a higher tolerance, a lower tolerance. So for example, like I make extractions. I'm like full-time extraction lab, and I have an employee, and the main thing I work with is Amanita Muscaria, and so the tincture I make, people are typically taking the equivalent of uh, you know a, a, a quarter of a gram, which 250 milligrams, or maybe 125 milligrams, or even up to 500 or 750 milligrams. But I just heard from one of my clients the other day. She was weaning off of benzos, and she took my low strength tincture, which, I mean, she was taking like 30 to 60 milligrams, like such a small amount, and she weaned herself off of benzos with that, and I was just amazed. Typically my benzo recovering clients are like, they're having the hardest time. They usually are taking a lot more than most people, because they're trying to meet that deficit that the benzo drugs had left in their GABA system. Um, and as far as the protocol goes, that can also vary too. I always suggest, like, try 5 days on, 2 days off, or every other day. If you're like really sensitive and you want to, like really ease into it, try once every 3 days. Um, and then as far as like the break period goes, I usually tell people to just work with their body and trust their intuition, because it seems to be different for everybody. Like I I could be microdosing for like months and then take an entire month off. But somebody else might take it for a couple weeks and then they take like a week off or half of a week. So I don't make them, but I would love for everybody to have a microdosing journal and, just write down every day, like how they're feeling, what their intention is, what their dosage is, and then write it down at the end of the day, how their day was. And just working off of what their body's telling them and um, working off of like what Amanita, the spirit of the mushroom, is telling them in conjunction with their intuition. So
Mm.
um,
Yeah, it
yeah.
sounds very, very similar to, how I work with clients with other medicines, particularly speaking about psilocybin, where, yeah, it's not like a cookie cutter thing. And also you can't just sort of be prescribed that this is your right dose and go on with it. It's just so personal. You can start at a certain dose and then start playing around to find your sweet spot. And then I really love what you're bringing in, which is so important, is the other supportive modalities as well, like journaling, and working, developing a relationship with it. Just really, yeah, like just accepting that it's not the same as a pharmaceutical model, and to trust your intuition, which is just beautiful, and trust your body. And the most
Mhm.
interesting thing I find with microdosing of most medicines is that they help you to tune into your intuition. So it
Right.
just becomes a matter of like, trust it, because it's
Hmm.
talking to you, and it talks louder when you are yeah, when you're microdosing these beautiful magical plants. So, okay, well, how about, you were saying that you do tinctures? I'm interested in like the different things that you create and you offer, that include Amanita, but also, how about like for me up here in Vancouver, BC, they are growing all over the place, and there is not a chance in heck that I would pick one up and eat it, because aren't they poisonous? Can't they kill you?
Great question. So, whenever they are in their raw state, if you have properly identified it first, and I would always, with identification, confirm with three different sources very clearly. Um, Amanita muscaria is almost hard to not identify properly. I mean, there are some lookalikes like the Russula mushrooms. Um, the the they I think they're called the sickeners. And I mean, but they're almost unmistakable. I mean, they're the red cap with the white stalk and the annulus skirt ring hanging around. But regardless of that, like let's just say you have the right mushroom. Now you have to prepare it properly, because if you eat that mushroom raw, you're going to be getting a very high concentration of ibotenic acid, and high amounts of ibotenic acid can lead to some very negative side effects. Um, I don't I don't believe anyone has actually truly died from an Amanita muscaria. I think that there's been stories about people who had tried it or had it, but then they had maybe mixed it in with other mushrooms that were poisonous. So, I mean, I've eaten the raw mushroom itself. They grow here in Pennsylvania, and I'm a curious psychonaut, and I was like, well, let's go, let's dive in. Like, what's the other side of this mushroom? Because I know the yin side, I know the muscimol, the soothing mother. Like, I need that like electricity, raw, like energizing ibotenic acid because it stimulates the glutamate receptors in the brain, ibotenic acid, and it's very energizing. It's very neuroexcitatory, whereas muscimol is like almost the complete opposite. So it was not a pleasant experience at first, but then the rest of my entire day felt amazing. I just had to get through like the first hour, which was pretty rough. I vomited twice, but after I got through that, I just meditated through it and breathed and dry fasted. And the rest of the day, I felt very very open. Like my heart was open. Like I was having heart to hearts with like my postal worker, and like, just like hanging out with people. Like when I'd go to buy something, just like talk to them about their life. And I felt very, it was almost like I almost hate to diminish it this way, but just to give people an idea, it was almost like I had a slight alcohol buzz and like had taken some MDMA. It was just like very open, very free. I felt very uninhibited. And so, but if you were to eat a large amount of ibotenic acid, you could have some serious negative side effects. You could have convulsions, and I've seen people have seizures. And so it's really important to prepare it properly, and that's what we call a proper decarboxylation. So just like cannabis, you can decarboxylate amanitas to make them more viable for consumption. And the cool thing is that ibotenic acid actually decarbs into muscimol. So it loses its carboxyl group through various means of heat and pH change. The most tried and true, common and well-known method is the Austin patent, which is a study done by Trent Austin. And if you you take your mushrooms, and you can actually do this with raw mushrooms too. So I'm skipping a step right here. Typically, you would take your mushrooms, you'd pick them, um, and you would take the cap and you would dehydrate it. I also use the stems. They have less active compounds in them, but they also have some other compounds. I think maybe something like NAC, and then some other compounds that I'm forgetting right now. But whenever you're talking about weight and dosage, that's typically with the caps only. Um, and so you would dehydrate them, and then you would, and you want to, the best way to do it is low and slow, because you don't want to like destroy all the compounds, but there is a sweet spot. We have a dehydration chart on our Facebook group page, the Amanita Muscaria Science and Magic, along with a bunch of other studies and beginners guides. But the so you have your dehydrated mushrooms, and then you take your caps and you would put those in water, and typically water boils at 100 degrees Celsius, and then you would change the pH to 3 with citric acid, which is a common food item for preservation. Or you could use straight lemon juice, which would probably taste horrible. I have never done it, but you want to get that pH down to 3, and then you want to boil it for about 3 hours, and then you can achieve a full decarb that way. And that way, that there's going to be like a fraction of a percent of ibotenic acid. But just coming from what I have experienced and other people, AV Esther's mentioning in the chat too, like small amounts of the raw mushroom, they're, it's like I can't advise this, but in some ways it's kind of pleasant whenever you're out foraging mushrooms to get a little boost of energy while you're foraging. You're building a relationship with them. Uh, but like I'm talking like a nibble, a very small nibble. Um, I had half of a small cap, and I thought it was going to be nothing, and I almost ate the entire cap. And I'm glad I didn't, because I was having an interesting experience that I did not want to push any further. And so that was my little experiment. I have a video on YouTube about it, but um, yeah, so it's all in the preparation and also in the dose. So and then also too, each mushroom can vary in potency tenfold. You could have one mushroom growing beside another one, and it could be 10 times weaker or stronger than the one beside it. And so that throws people off. The ibotenic acid throws people off, and it's really just adds to the mystique and the beauty and the occult nature of this mushroom. Because if you don't prepare it properly, you could have a very negative experience. If you don't take enough, you could have like a nothing happened experience. But if you take too much, then you can get into these very strange psychedelic spaces that most psychonauts are not familiar with. I've talked with multiple people who've had high dose most things, and like even iboga, and they said amanita and high doses made iboga look like a cakewalk, um, which is saying something, because that used to be like the one people would say is the end all be all. And
Mhm.
yeah, so I've personally had hero doses of amanita, and I've had hero doses of many other things, and I would agree. I would agree with that. I have a lot of people come to me and they ask me like, how much do you trip? And I'm like, I don't think you want that. I don't think you want that. I think that you want probably something like psilocybin or LSD. Um, and if you really want that experience, microdose it for like 6 months and then talk to me. um, it's definitely something. She is a medicine to be respected, for sure.
Wow. Okay. That makes me even more convinced that I'm not going to go and just pick the mushroom off my front lawn here. I think maybe the teeniest, tiniest nibble, but I think there is a reason why there are people like you, like Abby, like other people in the room who do prepare these products for the rest of us so that we can safely and mindfully consume them. So thank you for that. I've pinned a link to the top of the room, everybody, on Michael's allthingsamanita.com website for more information. And he has generously offered the Flourish Academy family 15% off any products. If you're interested, just use the code Flourish15. So check that out. I have a ton more questions, but I'm seeing that there is a lot of audience desire to get in on this conversation too. So I'm going to I can come back to my questions if there's time at the end. Let's start moving around the room and see what other questions people have and how they want to contribute to this conversation. Thank you so much for being here, Michael, with us in the Flourish Academy's Microdosing 101 room. We're talking about microdosing Amanita Muscaria, and we meet here in the Flourish Academy for Psychedelic Microdosing 101 every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. So please do be sure to join us. With that, I'm just going to turn this over to my co-moderator, Catherine Wilkie, and just see if there's anything that she might like to add to the conversation or ask you before we move around and get around to everybody who's on the stage with us today. So over to you, Catherine.
Hi. Wow. Thank you, Michael and Dana. That was so informative. And Michael, you had me at sleep through the night. Uh, that's it. I don't need any more other reasons to uh, to want to start microdosing Amanita. Um, my question for you is there any stacking protocol that you would use with Amanita?
Oh yeah, this is one of my favorites. So I actually started doing this about 1 year ago, where I would stack psilocybin, lion's mane, and Amanita muscaria. And the psilocybin, personally, I would be doing it in a small amount. But so this is like I'm like telling everyone about this. Like if you feel the call, and if you work with these mushrooms individually, or you have like the call to do it, like try it out, because it is an amazing neurostack. So Amanita muscaria is a neuroprotectant. That is the one thing, with the Stamets stack is wonderful, but we live in a stressful environment. We are bombarded by oxidative stress all the time. And what happens in these studies with the harissinones in lion's mane is that whenever these rats are exposed to oxidative stress, the neurogenesis is like reverted back to what it was before. So all the new neurons die off. Now we know that psilocybin increases neuroplasticity. That's the ability to adapt and overcome to new challenges, new changes. It also has neurogenic genesis properties. Lion's mane is neurogenesis, and that's where the amanita comes in as a neuroprotectant, protecting the myelin sheath that connects the axons of the neurons. And so whenever I was doing this stack, I literally felt like my brain was growing. I felt like I was able to do complex equations in my brain, like with my eyes closed while I'm falling asleep. And it's never really changed. I stopped doing that stack. I just actually the last week briefly played around with it again. But the benefits I've noticed and the new, mental things I noticed like never left. And I think that as we explore new psychedelics and microdosing specifically, we're gonna find so many more like amazing stacks, and I can almost guarantee you in like 5 or 10 years, there's gonna be like this stack and this stack and that stack for different purposes. Um, but another stack I like, and my customers love is I have a product called the Chill Blend, and it's just reishi mushroom that I forage here in Pennsylvania, and then Tulsi basil, which I grow here. Um, People that have like serious anxiety, people that have serious stress in their life, like huge cortisol dumps, just overwhelmed. Taking the Amanita and the Tulsi and the reishi in that chill blend, or just by themselves, people really benefit from that. It really helps with insomnia too. And there's tons of stacks. I mean, there's so many things. I think one thing that's a really common purchase I see is just Amanita and psilocybin together, or Amanita and lion's mane. I don't sell psilocybin. um, Amanita and lion's mane together. So those are some good stacks I would recommend.
Fascinating. My question is, what are the ratios or the amounts? Like, are you doing a standard kind of 125 milligrams of psilocybin? Um, can you speak to that? If you're doing the psilocybin lion's mane amanita?
Yeah, sure. I think most people would be fine with 125 milligrams. Um, maybe yeah. I would say, like, for myself, I'd be taking less because I'm very sensitive to it. Um, but I also know some people that are taking maybe even up to 200 milligrams of psilocybin. And then with the lion's mane, maybe an extracted form, okay, not just dry powder, but extracted form, maybe like 100 to 200 milligrams. And with the Amanita, probably about the same. So it might be easiest just to be like, 150 milligrams of each. Um, that might be an easy way to quantify it.
Got it. Thanks. Sorry. Uh, Wonderful. Also,
I think we got to keep moving around the room, Catherine. Look how many
oh,
people we have.
God.
Hey, could I just mention one thing, um, fairly briefly?
Of course.
Okay, so I appreciate this ability to have a platform to talk to people. And one thing that's like really been a huge stress to myself and my admin team is these new CBD companies that are coming out with these Amanita gummies. Um, I used to work with one of them. I was like their first supplier, and they a lot of these Amanita gummies are actually laced with other drugs, and we have had user reports of people failing their own at-home drug tests. Also, too, there's one lab that actually tested them, and they're positive for high amounts of psilocybin. Um, Now, I can't really talk too much about like what we're personally doing internally as a team, but there is a large amount of Amanita gummies that are not safe to eat because they are filled with other drugs. So there will be new companies coming out, and I would be one of them to have my own gummies that would be vegan or at least organic. But there's a lot of really, really shady companies. I think it's like really sad that this is happening with Amanita, but it's just the way the market is right now. It's unfortunate, but I just had to throw that in there because usually right now with the amount that these companies are advertising, that might be the first point of contact with somebody to hear about Amanita. So just had to throw that in there. My due diligence as a representative of the mushroom.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally appreciate that. We need to know these things, right? So thank you for bringing that up so that we can be, buyer aware, right? So yeah, and really appreciate what you're doing so ethically and organically and energetically with the Amanita that you provide into the market. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, Catherine, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was looking at the stage going, okay, we're going to have to get around to a lot of people. I've turned off
No
hand
worries.
raising now. So if you're with us, awesome. And if not, looks like there's a possibility we're going to have to be revisiting this one. And we know we have some beautiful experts who are even in the room with us today who can share. So let's get the party going. Let's move around to Danny, and then we'll go after that to Jordan. So over to you, Danny.
Thank you, Michael. Just a quick comment, on the legality. What blows my mind is that the U.S. government considers Amanita a poisonous mushroom, and supposedly drug prohibition is to keep us safe. But oddly, they don't ban a poisonous mushroom; they only ban psychedelic mushrooms. So I feel like that's pretty telling about the true intentions with prohibition. My question
Yeah,
is, I'd love to hear, you can certainly comment on that, but my question is, I'd like to hear a little bit more about your experience with the spirit of Amanita.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just to your first point, I think it's almost like people are so afraid of Amanita that they didn't even bother. But in my experience, it's like one of the most profoundly spiritual mushrooms. But it's a slow burn relationship. It takes a lot of a lot of humility and respect to start working with her. And that's going into like the spirit is like thank you for bringing that 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 up because that's like really the most important thing. I was microdosing with Amanita, very very small amounts, but one thing that people experience, and it's just like I'm not making this up. Like I'm a very spiritual person, but I'm very skeptical too. Like I'm all about like the truth, and if the truth is woo woo, then I'm going there. But if like I'm not about woo woo just because it feels woo. So just wanted to give that caveat. But one thing that people experience with Amanita, and I've personally experienced it, is that she will come up in your life in synchronicities before she comes right out and reveals herself. For myself personally, I used to have a very unhealthy relationship with cannabis. For half of my life, I abused cannabis, and cannabis abused me. And on the day that I knew I needed to quit, like the very day, my friend introduced me. She said, "Hey, have you heard of microdosing Amanita?" And I was like, "What? That's that like poisonous mushroom, like what? You're crazy." And I'd already been working with mushrooms, doing extractions for many years. And so I started to look into it. And then two other people brought up that they had large amounts of Amanita, like 15-gram doses, and that not much had happened, but they had this prolonged sense of peace. And I was like, okay, well, you're not dead. And you seem to have your marbles. So maybe there's something to this. And I actually worked with Amanita, and she provided everything for me that I was seeking with cannabis. Relief from depression, relief from anxiety, just being able to feel at ease, being able to calm my ADHD brain and just get into a flow state and like focus on one thing at a time and not just like ping pong brain everything. And she provided so much for me and allowed me to have an easy transition from a very, very long and difficult relationship with cannabis that I was abusing. It was one of the hardest things I did in my life, but I think that it would have been so much harder if I didn't have Amanita with me. And a lot of people, make this joke. It's like Amanita sounds like I'm a need it, and it's like kind of like she's this spiritual adaptogen. And that's how it was for me. Like she worked with me with what I needed. And what I needed was third eye opening. And what my wife needed was heart healing. What somebody else needed was the root chakra activation. And it's interesting because she doesn't have one spiritual effect for each, for everyone. There's an individual relationship people develop with her. And what I find that the people who really have the humility and the patience to work with her get so much out of that relationship. But if they don't, then she kind of closes the doors. And it's very interesting. We're working with living spirits here. These aren't just compounds and chemicals. This is a real living entity. So yeah, I think there's a lot more I could say, but I hope that answers your question, Danny.
I will respond on Danny's behalf and just say yes. And thank you so much. And what a great question, Danny. That was, that is equally as critical to the conversation as, the clinical stuff and the dosage and the protocol and all that kind of stuff is the relationship and the spirit and the energy. And I'm just so, my heart is warmed to hear that coming into the conversation. So thank you, Danny, for that. With that, we have our co-mod Andrea on the stage, so you get to skip to the front of the line there, Andrea, just as virtue of being co-mod, and then we'll go to Jordan. So, Andrea, over to you.
Well, hey, thanks for having me talk. Well, I won't take up a lot of time because I see that this is a very well attended room and how wonderful that it is. It says a lot about the curiosity that's popping up, and I can echo that myself. Avi Esther, who's here, has helped me kind of talk through my draw to Amanita, who's been personally calling me long before I had any physical contact with this mushroom, showing up in dreams. Like even if my dream is about something else entirely, it's like my hands are preparing Amanita and like grinding it, or I'm doing something with it, but it's just showing up everywhere. They're popping up, and noticing that when I focus my attention on it, it gets more intense. And somebody gave me a tincture, not entirely sure whether or not the tincture had degraded or whether it's not strong. I don't know what I meant to be feeling. I worked up from a very small amount, but what I did notice was a redirection of my energy. I didn't feel a physiological anything. What I felt was I don't know how to explain it. I had this moment where I just sort of like a little bit disassociated from myself and went, damn, I love her.
Aw.
And it was
Yeah.
such a like nice feeling. And I was like, I think this is the Amanita. So anyway,
Yeah.
just a comment and just love what you're bringing here today. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's like people will have a dream about her, and then they'll like go online and like find my website somehow. It just like pops up. And then I had a wholesale client that I was talking to for like an hour on the phone, and he had to go. He got an Uber, and the Uber driver just started randomly talking about how Amanita changed his life. And he's just like, what? Like, I can't make this up. I mean, it happens all the time. And one thing I wanted to just say is like with the disassociation thing, one of the main things I notice is that with the healing of PTSD through Amanita, is that how it feels, it's almost like you're not you're not blind to your emotions. You're able to witness them without the fear, and you can move through it with courage. And so if you're doing some like deep work, like with meditation or even massage, like finding areas in your body somatically that are holding energy and emotions. You're able to witness that with the help of Amanita. She literally lubricates this process to expedite it into healing and growth, where you can witness the painful memory, but you don't have the visceral response and reaction to it. And so what happens whenever you are just continuing that cycle, like memory, reaction, memory, reaction, and our brains, keep in mind, don't know the difference between witnessing something, remembering something, or experiencing it directly. So it's all the same to the brain. So if we can remember a traumatic event and we can look at it from an objective standpoint and not be numb to it, but actually witness it and have the courage to face it, then we can actually step off of that cycle and create a new timeline where we are not that traumatized person anymore.
Wow. Oh gosh, what a beautiful response. I am loving this conversation. Thank you so much again, Michael, for being here. This is Psychedelic Microdosing 101. We're talking about microdosing Amanita Muscaria with Michael Wilson of All Things Amanita. His website's at the top of the page, and he's offered a 15% discount to our community using the code Flourish15. We're going to keep moving around the room. And as I said at the beginning of the room, in our disclaimers, please be respectful of your shares. And with that, we also mean respectful of time, because this is a very popular topic. And we do try to get around to everybody on our stage before our finish time of 10:30. So just keeping that in mind with your shares, please. And we're moving around to our friend Jordan. So good to see you. Thanks for being in the room, Jordan. I heard you were the first one to invite Michael into Clubhouse. So thank you for bringing him here. Jordan.
And he invited me to the Flourish Academy too.
No, that's
Is
so
he?
awesome. Yay. Okay, Jordan, I don't know. We're going to have to come back to Jordan. Yoo-hoo. Maybe he's
He's
jumping
MIA.
on his trampoline. He does the bounce thing. Maybe he's bouncing. Okay, Wendy. Hi, Wendy. It's good to see you here too.
Hi, thanks for having me here. Actually, I was on a Clubhouse room the other day with Jordan. He was talking about you, Michael.
Oh, cool.
So glad to see you here, and thank you so much for bringing your information here. The one thing I just wanted to come in and talk about or mention was when you were talking about the dissociating, which you just kind of brought up, and I wanted how you were saying that some clients find it a lot easier with the Amanita versus the psilocybin. And the work that I do, I work with people. I'm an orgasm coach, so I work with a lot of people who have issues with dissociating from their body. And the psilocybin actually really brings you back into your body. So for people who haven't established a practice of feeling safe in their body, and which is often tied to their anxiety, and that's driving a lot of these other issues in their life, is because of times when they were unsafe, that the psilocybin can really, really trigger that, as well as cannabis too, because of the mechanisms which they work with. Um, and it's just cool to hear about Amanita, because I myself did not realize it wasn't illegal. I just assumed it was, because I don't know, I just assumed it was. And I've been working with Kava with a bunch of my clients and myself as well. So, and I know Kava works on the same GABAergic uh, network, and it has been really useful. So now I'm excited to really try Amanita. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of people would say that with Amanita, it can enhance your sex life. Um, and I think that it's maybe something to do with, like, I mean, we can all probably agree that, drunk sex is not the best sex, but you might feel very very open, and very, like, unafraid, uninhibited, and with Amanita, in those microdoses or the threshold doses, you're not as, like, sloppy, with alcohol. Whenever you're starting to, like, get into those high doses with Amanita, like, I definitely felt like sloppy, slurry, like, my body's kind of numb and I'm, like, falling over. but on those threshold and those microdoses, it's just like eases it a little bit. And I think you hit the nail on the head with the psilocybin. bringing you into those traumas. Psilocybin's almost like, hey, look at this. And Amanita is like, hey, like, why don't you go to sleep, and I'm going to do some subconscious surgery on your energetic body, and you're going to wake up like you just lost a bunch of, scar tissue, because I'm like healing these deep wounds. So I think that it probably could be something very good. I mean, Amanita in high doses can be quite dissociative. So I wouldn't recommend that for people who are already dissociating. But I think that in a small way, it could bring somebody in to face the trauma that is the reason why they are dissociating, and just not have that visceral, physiological response to it.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate your feedback.
Yeah, I'm even more excited to try Amanita now. When you talk about sex and sleep, great. I'm in. All
What
right,
more do you need, right?
Lucia. Yeah, exactly. Lucia, moving around to you. Hi, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Dana. Hi, Catherine. It's great to see everyone. I just love that we, of course, are talking about sexuality, pleasure, regaining our orgasmic everything. That's my jam. And what's up with me? I was just really curious about microdosing Amanita. I love listening to Avi in other rooms, and she's my kind of person I usually go to. So hearing Michael talking about the process too has been really beautiful for me. So I guess I just checked out your website, and I am curious, Michael, about the difference between the decarboxylated and the spagyric blend that you do. I'm just very curious about the differences and what that could entail. And you answered a question that I had, which was high doses versus microdosing. I'm definitely a high dose psilocybin microdoser, or sorry, high dose psilocybin person and a microdoser as well. But and my field is somatic sex education, sexological bodywork. So I work with a lot of people who are, you know, moving through their trauma, but also calling in their wisdom. So the piece I'd like to know really is around how it affects the deep ancestral healing.
Great
Ultimately.
questions. Yeah, so the spagyric, I'm going to prepare a fully decarbed version of that. I just the spagyric I have now is only partially decarbed. But spagyrics versus the other tinctures I make are like completely different preparations. The spagyric is this process, and there's many ways to make spagyrics, but the way I do it is a full-on 10-week ritual where I start on the new moon. I gather spring water during that day. I'm setting the space. I'm clearing energy. I'm clearing my energy. I'm making sure there's not chaos in my house. And I am introducing those mushrooms or those herbs to the solvent, back into the womb per se, and I'm hermetically sealing that. And I'm only working on the days that are associated with the planetary correspondence with whatever mushroom or herb that is. So this is something new I've just started working on in the last year, and I've done a ton of research, and I'm just doing like the development stage right now. And I wanted to make like the economy version, like the good, like affordable tinctures for everybody. And then because I'm just like a perfectionist, I'm like, okay, well, what's next? Like, I want to make the top shelf. Like, I want to make the most amazing, potent, spiritually profound medicine I can make. And so the cool thing about spagyrics too is that they're a true triple extract. They're not just a double or single extract. And the triple extract is like the final element is in alchemy we call it the salts, but it's actually physically minerals. These minerals are thrown away. They're whenever you do double extract or single extract, they're thrown away with the material. And so whenever you do this process of calcination, I literally put the material in a forge that you use for metal. Like I incinerate it, and the only thing left is pure minerals. And what you're left with is this like crystalline structure, and it's the body. It's the body of the mushrooms or the herbs. And so you incorporate that back in, and on an energetic imprint, it is like boom, like embodied. Like you're not just consuming this tea or this tincture, which is kind of heady. Um, in alchemy, we have the sulfur and the mercury, which are the alcohol and water soluble compounds, but it's always missing the salts or the body. And the salts are literally from the body of the plant. And so that is just kind of in a nutshell. I know that's a big nutshell, but that's the difference. They're all really good. But the spagyric, keep in mind it's not fully decarb, so it does have some ibotenic acid. It's typically, I'd say it's good for like during the daytime when you got something to do. Um, Whenever you're just sitting around and you want to relax, it might give you kind of a little too much energy. Um, and then I forget your next question. If you could repeat that, it'd be
Sure,
helpful.
Michael. I was curious about what just your own personal connection with like ancestral healing and your
Okay, yeah,
with Amanita.
right. So, personally, I'm a Northern European and Western European mutt, and I have experienced various psychedelics from other cultures that are not part of my ancestry, and I always enjoyed them, and I always got great benefit from them. But with Amanita, I actually feel like I'm taking my ancestors' medicine, like the people of England and Scotland and Ireland and Wales. Like I feel like I'm actually taking my heritage sacrament, and that is super cool because I'm a white American and I'm disconnected from my heritage, like many of us are. Um, I don't know what cultural practices my ancestors had. We jumped ship and went into this melting pot after we took over this country, unfortunately. Um, so it's not like I've personally experienced a lot of like ancestral healing, but I feel like I'm actually uncovering my ancestral roots. And ironically, my dad at this very moment is like uncovering our ancestry while I'm simultaneously like feeling this experience in my body. So hope that helps. But I wanted to say too, other people have reported a lot of past life trauma healing and ancestral healing. I just personally haven't really had a whole lot of that.
Thank you so much, Michael, and your honesty and openness, and very, very informative. Thank you to the room. I appreciate it. Gratitude.
Yeah, I echo that, Lucia, and also just loving the spiritual side of it and the energetic side and bringing that in. And I'll tell you what, like I haven't microdosed with Amanita yet. I've been curious. And so I've been learning, which is why we've had Avi in here as well. But I haven't felt that like call to her yet. But that call, she is calling to me through this room. So thank you. I cannot wait to let you know how she works with me and how I work with her. So let's move around to our other resident Amanita Muscaria fly agaric expert in the Flourish Academy. Avi, so nice to see you here. I'm sure you have lots on your mind.
Hi, Donna. Hi, Michael. I just want to say hi because you and I speak through message and in the Amanita thread on Signal, but I don't think we've actually ever spoken. So, hi, Michael.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, I'm actually doing really super good. I'm in Ibiza at the moment, and it's really beautiful. um, I love what you said about connecting into your ancestry, and I would love to just add to that that the land that you live on now, and the history and the spirit of the land and your ancestry are aligned through the Amanita. So there's anthropological evidence that there has been usage of Amanita muscaria amongst the indigenous across the northern hemisphere. So you're winning. Like we all are winning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Uh,
awesome.
and I love that space um, where we're talking around our microbiomes, right? Where especially when you were speaking into the spiagaric, loved that, and connecting into the salts and the minerals and the microbiome that we live in, and whether that's with Amanita muscaria or you go and pick, I don't know, herbs or weeds in your garden or whatever you're doing in the soil, it's so important that our inner biomes and our outer biomes are harmonized, right? So I don't actually have any questions, but like there's so many like rabbit holes that I would love to dive into. At the moment am really looking at fertility and sexuality with Amanita muscaria. And then, of course, because of that gonadotropin access, there seems to be a really beautiful synastry with Amanita muscaria and helping with fertility issues, opening up sexuality, sexual trauma, which is why I created the yoni cream, because it, of course, absorbs through the mucosa of the vagina and the anus. Um, so I guess I'm starting at the bottom.
You would go there, Avi.
Come on.
Oh my gosh, Michael, anything you want to respond to before we move on to Faza?
Um, I don't know. That's awesome though. I think there is something to say about with the healing the sexual trauma. I think that it definitely like what where I was talking about with Wendy and Lucia, just how there is something to say about how the body just shuts down whenever we have trauma. And it's like one of the main things is like, you know like sex is like in a survival state, like sex is optional, and so like whenever we get into that fight or flight mode, like our sexuality shuts down because it's like this is not, it's like biologically saying this is not safe to procreate. And so with Amanita kind of like unlocking some of that trauma in like a really um gentle and safe way, I think that she can be a really really great ally for sexual trauma. um yeah, 100%.
Amazing. I feel that Avi and Michael, this is just probably the beginning of your connection and your conversations. Both have so much knowledge and a very similar inspirational approach. So thank you for being here. Let's move on to Faza. Hello, Faza. Welcome to the stage. What would you like to ask Michael today? Hi, Faza. Do you want to join in the conversation today? Or are you happy just to be there listening? Okay, we might just circle back to see if Jordan's available now and wants to contribute.
Yeah, hi, I'm here. I had to be in a call for the first hour,
No
but
worries.
I can go back and listen to the replay. And I had the fortune of getting to speak to Michael on the phone for we had a nice long talk, and he's an absolutely invaluable resource. So um, I don't have questions because I think everything I want to ask is going to be in, for one thing, that book that I ordered by Kevin Feeney, who is a friend of Michael's, the Amanita, the big overleaf book. It's like a $50 book, even as a paperback. But so I have a feeling that I shouldn't be asking questions so much specifically, although I do have questions about Amanita and microdosing and why it seems to be so good for, uh, you know, it's a good option if you have anxiety and everything else might not be, and it's a good option if you have seizures from something like epilepsy. And it's just, it's if microdosing itself may ultimately be more revolutionary than macrodosing, then Amanita may ultimately be the most revolutionary substance. So I'm just trying to be open to that. And in fact, I've started microdosing with Michael's product. And so far, I've kept it really small. Like, I think maybe you're supposed to take a whole dropper full because at this rate it will last forever. I started with like one drop, and I very much felt that first drop. I definitely felt that Amanita was on sort of a different neurological axis, and that I was feeling different. And I'm up to five of these drops, and this is the weaker. It's like the weakest one he had. I just wanted to go really slow because I'm aware of things like from the Reddit threads around LSD and psilocybin that there are people taking 1/10 or 1/100th to the recommended microdose range and still getting good results. So I thought I would start as absolutely low as I could with Amanita, and that's how I'm going to keep going. But I do sense it's very different and very profound and beneficial, and I'm open to it contributing to healing certain parts of my physical system that are kind of messed up. It feels like a strong potential ally, but one that, for me, it makes sense to go slow with, which I guess does bring me to my one question, which is um, how good is the research showing that a protocol that includes microdosing Amanita every day for, let's say, up to 2 weeks at least without a break is a sensible thing to do? Because, in microdosing, generally the protocol is not too much, not too often, and not too long without a break. And so that's why most of the difference in the major protocols like Fadiman's and Stamets is about how many days on and off. But now we're talking about a whole different sort of protocol that, means day by day you keep going. And I've heard, if you were thinking about doing a larger dose, you want to build up to it too. And I understand that there might be something about it being, what's that word, GABAergic, uh, uh, involved in this, and I just kind of want to know like how good the research and the thinking is, because all three of the Amanita paradigms or paradigms protocols that I'm aware of, they all have you taking it every single day. So that's actually a big jump ship from the normal microdosing protocol, and I'm just curious how we got to that, or how that was figured out, and whether there's any real science behind it. And Avi Esther, you crack us up.
Um, yeah, so I actually don't believe there is any research, like actual studies on Amanita microdosing. There might be something in Baba Masha's book, because she kind of like has created a conglomeration of different anecdotal reports. But again, it's not like a bona fide scientific study. And I haven't really dove too much into it, but I think this is a good opportunity to, do a shout out to two different books, which would be the Fly-Agaric Compendium, which Jordan just bought. Fly-Agaric Compendium by Kevin Feeney. He's a friend and colleague of mine. And then the Microdosing Amanita Muscaria by Baba Masha is a good book to check out. I can't verify it's 100%, accurate, but I've heard good things about it. I bought it. I just haven't dove through it
Yeah,
all.
yeah, I've met her, and I've met her in person. I spent a day
Oh,
with her. This is Jordan, and also Jim Fadiman wrote the foreword for that book. So, she's the real deal. She comes from a shamanic lineage. She is a medical doctor as well as an engineer and a great painter, like really amazing paintings. And so, I appreciate the fact that she's a leading citizen, the leading citizen science perhaps in Amanita, with having collected thousands of cases of people and set them out in her book. So, yeah, what a great resource. And maybe I should reach out to her. Maybe she could explain the chemistry to me here.
yeah, I think that she would be a good person to reach out to. I mean, personally, I recommend people do 5 days on, 2 days off, or every other day. And that seems to work great for my clients. Um, but I do have some people that take it every day, but those it's not as common in my experience. She might have a different experience, or AV's clients might have a different experience. I think the most important thing is that like we continue to bring new information because this is an evolving field. So yeah, Great questions, Jordan.
Yeah, great questions, Jordan. Thanks for being here. So I got the Fly Agaric Compendium by Kevin Feeney. Michael, what was the other book that you suggested?
I believe it's just called Microdosing. Hold on, Microdosing with Amanita Muscaria
Okay.
by Baba Masha.
Okay. Thank you.
Forward by James Fadiman. So
There you go. And James is here with us today too. So awesome. Great. Okay. Moving around, we have Dr. Regina Moore. Hello, Regina. Welcome to the stage. What's on your mind today?
Hey there, hopefully I can be heard. I've got a child melting down in the background at the moment, so I'll keep it short. I work with Michael in the Facebook groups and some of our other communities, and I'm a pharmacist interested in a lot of things around psychedelics, and I've been kind of watching and paying attention to the Amanita discussion for a few years now. I also am an avid mushroom forager and source some of that for people just from what I pick up throughout the year. So I was just curious what was going on here today and listening and seeing if there was anything specific where I might be able to add anything, but mostly seems like a good conversation. Nothing specific to add or ask. So I'll let you pass it on, and thanks for bringing a little more attention.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us and giving your
Thanks,
stamp of approval on the conversation. Yes. Hi, Ankara. Welcome to the room again. It's so good to have you here with us. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Dana, I appreciate you. Thanks for always hosting these really great rooms. I always, really learn a lot and appreciate the community that comes in here. Very supportive and educational. So you're doing great work, Dana. Also wanted to, just appreciate your co-hosts, the moderators, and also Michael, appreciate you coming in and sharing your knowledgeability and creating, a seemingly quality product. I haven't tried it myself, but I definitely would love to tap in. And I just wanted to chime in specifically about this ancestral note because I think it is very important. And following that line of thought, just recently in the past like 4 or 5 years, I started to realize my ancestral connection with the Amanitas and psilocybin specifically, and I also have Irish ancestors. So one of the family lineages comes through the Celtic ancestry line. And so I did a deep dive and had opportunity to really uncover a lot of information that I didn't have before. But the Amanitas and the Liberty Caps are definitely frequently utilized by the healers and the druidic cults of Ireland. And I actually did a research, created a YouTube video about it. So I just wanted to share, for those of you who are, or maybe, of that Irish ancestry or Celtic lineages, and you want to learn more about your connection with the Amanitas and the Liberty Caps. There's a lot there. So if I can, Dana, I would love to offer that link, and then people can go and check out more of that connection if they'd like.
So I was actually just putting in the chat, like, yes, Ankara, can you please share the link? So yes, please do. And I also, go ahead, Michael.
I appreciate you saying that, Ankara, because I'm doing this work with Amanita, and my dad's telling me about our Scottish and Irish ancestors and how we were, he found that we were related to this one clan, and the clan would they held land for hundreds of years, and they fought off other warring clans, for territory. And apparently some of my ancestors would get naked in battle and yell at their enemy to intimidate them. And if anybody's familiar with it, yeah, exactly. So I got some berserker blood in me, and like there was definitely some kilt wearing naked men going to war in my lineage, which is kind of sad. You know, I don't like to have that bloodshed, but it's interesting that he actually found that specific detail. So, and that's
Yeah.
for everybody who doesn't know, Amanita Muscaria is associated with there's some history around berserkers who would take these mushrooms and like go to battle. And my theory is they were taking a high ibotenic acid mushroom brew, because I feel like if I had a fully decarbed Amanita tea and was going to go to battle, I would just fall asleep. Like, so not be very effective.
Hey, Michael, I wanted to encourage you, man. I just pulled up this book. It's by Laird Scranton, and it's called The Mystery of the Skara Brae, Neolithic Scotland and the Origins of Ancient Egypt. And it really goes in, bro. And I really recommend, if you're, you have that Scottish Irish lineage, to check out this book, Mystery of the Skara Brae. I'll type it in the chat. But it's another great research book that you can kind of connect some dots there. But I do believe that I need to be a moderator to share the link on the YouTube page. So if you want to make me a mod, Dana, then I can do that. But anyways, I know we're running short on time. I just wanted to say thanks again, Michael, for your knowledgeability and information that you're bringing, an amazing product that you're creating. I'm excited to build more with you and get a hold of some of that magic juice that you're creating, man. So thanks again, and I'll pass it back over to you, Dana.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for those insights, Ankara. And actually, you and I just been talking about having you as a guest, and I was going like, maybe we can talk about like Celtic history and heritage and stuff. That might be another, like, that's going to be another hot topic. So many of us have that background. But also, everybody, Ankara hosts rooms here on Clubhouse that I highly recommend you check out too for more great conversations around psychedelics, entheogens, plant medicines, and lots of other hot topics. And is it right when I say philosopher, or is it psilocipher? Because I've heard both pronunciations.
What's funny is I used to host one of the mini rooms, was called the Philosopher's Stone. but the actual the room or the club is called Psilocipher. So it's like a play on psilocybin and cipher. So Psilocipher
Nice.
Sessions.
Got it. All
Nice.
right. Well, I highly recommend to the rest of our audience, check out Psilocipher Sessions. You can find out all about it if you check on Ankara's biography, or whatever you call it, profile on here. Awesome. All right. We are going to, Ankara, you can pin that link, or you can share that link, and we'll keep moving around the room. Somebody was asking if they could order from Indiana. I think that is it across North America, Michael? Across globally? Where do you ship to?
I ship everywhere. Sorry, hold on. Yeah, there's I don't have the list in front of me with the restricted countries, but just an FYI, I ship to every single country in the world. I just changed the customs, and I don't have issues. So
Awesome. Okay, so yes, definitely Indiana. And don't forget, everybody, the website, allthingsamanita.com. And Michael has generously offered our community 15% discount using the code Flourish15. So jump in there, get it while it's hot. Billy, hey, nice to see you. What's on your mind?
Thanks, Dana. So, a couple things. First of all, Jordan, I can't wait for you to read that book, because you do all my reading for me. I'm looking forward to hearing about that. Yeah, gee, Michael, it's so fascinating, and I am you. Other than I'm not Scottish, I want to know what the right mixture that you used for I've got the ADHD and I've got the marijuana problem. What mixture do you suggest for that? And the other question I have is, should I be taking GABA or not when I take Amanita?
what do you mean? You have the cannabis problem the same issues I had?
Yep.
Like a
I'm an
Okay.
abuser of
So
cannabis. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're not. It's not a. It's not a happy relationship.
No, not entirely. Absolutely
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, the whole thing about the GABA too. I've actually heard that that's fine. Um, to take GABA. It's not gabapentin, right?
Yeah, gabapentin. That's right.
Okay. Um, yeah, I think I've heard. I think I've heard that it's fine, but I would need to do more research before I suggest that to you. And your other question was like, what kind of
Which
dosage?
of your mixtures would you recommend to work with ADHD and the marijuana?
Yeah, yeah. So I would probably go with like the one of the 1 to 4 ratios. The yellow flag, Eric, or the Amanita Gissowii, the Amanita Muscaria variation Gissowii. I pick those personally here in Pennsylvania. And the Amanita Muscarias are from Europe. And then the Pantherinas are also from Europe. And Pantherinas 3 to 5 times stronger typically in muscimol compared to either of the other two. So like the best bang for your buck is like the Pantherina high strength, but most people go for the Amanita Muscaria, the 1 to 4, which is 250 milligrams per milliliter. And most people I would say like start with a half mil, which is approximately 15 drops, or 10 to 15 drops. But I have graduated markers on my bottles. Um, yeah, like I started microdosing on a very small amount whenever I quit smoking cannabis. And I was also smoking CBD because a lot of it for me was just like mental. Like I like smoking, like I grow my own tobacco, I smoke tobacco and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it was like more about the ritual of giving up this, like smoking this delicious plant. And so I weaned myself off with CBD while I'm tapering up on Amanita, tapering down on cannabis. And I did this over a course of like 2 to 3 months. And my birthday's coming up on Monday. And that 2 years ago was the last time I smoked. And I haven't really looked back since. So, if it's an unhealthy relationship, I commend you. And we can talk later if you want. You can also do consultations too.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Happy
Kristen, I
birthday.
just want to say too, Kristen Taylor is one of my wholesale clients. She recommends 2 to 5 drops for people of the 1 to 4. Um, and I think that that's a really safe way to do it. I think that, um, most people would be okay with like 5 to 10 drops. And then after like 1 or 2 weeks, most people would work their way up to like 250 milligrams, which would be a full dropper full. But if you want to start low and slow, that's always better. You can always take more later. And I think too, it fine tunes your sensitivity, because you notice things on a subtler realm. So I hope that helps.
This is Jordan again. I'm really liking the super low doses, and I'm definitely noticing things I've never noticed before. I know that sounds very subjective, but it's very, very interesting and really very, very different.
Yeah, and Jordan's taking the 1 to 15, which is about 4 times less than the 1 to 4. So
Yeah, I'm keeping
if
it
you
at
want to
least an
start
order of
even
magnitude
lower.
lower than probably would absolutely be safe, just to see if I can see it and what I notice. I can always go up.
Yeah, start low, go slow, right? And like Michael was saying, you can always take more, you can't take less. So, Billy, I
Yeah,
hope that was helpful for you. And last but not least, we're just running slightly over time, but I think Michael, are you okay to stay on for a couple more minutes while we get around to Sev?
absolutely.
All right, let's do it. Sev, nice to have you here, my friend. Grand Rising.
Grand Rising indeed. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. I really appreciate all the knowledge. The Amanita that's in my profile picture, I came across at Point Reyes here in Northern California on a hike January 1st. It was very intentional, much like a lot of the others in the room. trying to establish a connection with my Celtic heritage. I know my name comes from my paternal side, but on my maternal side, um, I have about 35% Irish and Scottish between the two. So yeah, that's thanks to ancestry.com. So yeah, I'm very much into discovering more about myself, and I think in turn, the more you discover about yourself, the more you discover about the universe. So I'm very grateful for all this information, and in my experience with this particular mushroom, it was very loving, very much like an MDA kind of experience, very heart opening, without the anxiety, of course. So I definitely am going to be getting the 1 to 4. It seems like would be more up my alley. So I'm very appreciative of everything that you're doing, the work that you're doing in this community, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Seb, it looks like you took a bite out of that mushroom.
I think it was a snail, maybe, but yeah, somebody was enjoying it before I got to it.
All right, everybody, we're wrapping up Psychedelic Microdosing 101. We meet every Thursday morning to talk about everything and anything psychedelics, and we were so grateful to have Michael Wilson here as our guest today. Let me just see if I can quickly, I'm just going to pin your link back up there before we head out for the day. Give me 1 second here. Thank you for the YouTube, sharing the YouTube, Ankara. That's what is up there now, but I'm just going to put it back to Michael's website so everybody knows where they can find him. And also that Michael has generously offered our community 15% discount on his products today using Flourish 15 as your code. I learned so much today. I didn't just learn so much, I felt so much. And she has called me after this conversation. So stay tuned, my family and friends here. I can't wait to share how my experience microdosing this beautiful Amanita Muscaria goes. And we are, this room is part of the Flourish Academy. We hold rooms 3 days a week, always at 9 a.m. Pacific. If you want to stay in the loop, please click on the little greenhouse icon up on your top left corner. And tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., Danny and Vanessa are going to be hosting a room, Psychedelics 101, that meets every Friday. And they're going to be having Amanda Epino. I think that's her last name. It's hard to pronounce. And I just had a quick look at the sort of synopsis of the room. So it's going to be engaging responsibly with plant medicines and how to integrate them. Specific focus on embodying reciprocity individually and collectively, including how you can support the organizations dedicated to reciprocity with Indigenous communities who steward sacred plants, bridging the sacred and the science within integration practices. So that is going to be beautiful and juicy. And Amanda is an incredible woman with such strong ethical principles and so much to educate us all on the way that she approaches reciprocity. So I do encourage you, if that's of interest to you, to join our room tomorrow. Michael, thank you once again for joining us here today. You've just been not just a wealth of like kind of evidence-based knowledge or more like the harder stuff, but the spiritual, the energetic, and all the beautiful relationship building stuff in between. So I really appreciate not just your products, but your approach.
That I think it really comes back to the true path of alchemy. Before science and spirituality branched off into their own separate sectors, they were actually asking the same question. And so as I continue to get to know myself more, I continue to get deeper in with spirituality and science and see how they're actually interwoven. So that's really where I come from, is like experiential, and yeah, and that takes the form of the right brain and the left brain, and the science and the magic. So I'm just happy to be here talking about my favorite subject in the world.
Amazing. And Michael did put in the chat, the best way to sort of stay in touch with him is on Instagram at harmony_acres or info at Harmony Acres Farm. What I understand is that Harmony Acres was or is kind of your main business, but there was just so much interest in Amanita that you had to break it off into a separate branch. Is that right?
Yeah, and I whenever I first started doing it, I was selling on Etsy and I got shut down, and then I had a GoDaddy website and I got shut down, and I got stigmatized in with psychedelic sales, and so I had to create my own website, and that's where I put all my Amanita stuff, and I just thought all things Amanita. That sounds like a good name, but Harmony Acres, is my farm. It's my business. But it's also my life. So the Harmony Acres is where, like, that Instagram is where you'll see not just like stuff about the products I'm producing, but just like if I feel inspired to make a video or something about anything, I will post it there, and that's like my main one. I steer people to. So I also have I'll just plug the Amanita one too, but that's pretty strictly just Amanita stuff.
Amazing.
Anyway,
Well, thank you
yeah.
for being here. I also really want to thank my co-moderator, Catherine, who is always so busy in the background, pinging people in and inviting people up and taking care of our technical stuff. But before we head off for the day, I'd like to just turn it back over to Catherine to wrap up the room for us.
Wow, this
If
was
before
quite a.
Catherine wraps up,
Oh,
sorry, Catherine. Before Catherine wraps up, I also just want to say, aside from the room tomorrow, next Wednesday in Entheogens of the Divine Masculine, Wendy will be with us, and we'll be talking about psychedelic orgasms. If you have anything to pop into that room as well, I think you could have a lot that you could add to that conversation as well.
Yes.
thanks,
I also
Oh,
Danny.
go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you to Dana, Catherine, and Danny for inviting me on and giving me the opportunity to not just talk about my business and stuff, but just the beauty of Amanita. It's such an obscure and occult mushroom, and it really needs more of a voice now than ever because of all the new businesses that are based around it. The best thing to combat bad information is accurate information, and so I just want to thank you for allowing me and like people like AV to have a platform to talk about this. It's really important, and we appreciate it so much, and the mushrooms do too.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Danny, for bringing that up about the room. Yes, Wendy, we are so excited to have you in the room on Wednesday next week. So, yeah, it's just keep coming back. 9 a.m.s Wednesday to Friday with the Flourish Academy. We are your Clubhouse family, psychedelic family. Catherine, over to you.
Okay. This was amazing. I so appreciate your perspective, Michael, on the science and the spirit of and the magic of all of it. It's really beautiful, balanced viewpoint, and I learned so much. And thank you to everyone for participating. We had such great participation and shares today. So I'm going to be brief. It was wonderful to be here with all of you, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow on Psychedelics 101. Have a great day, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye, everybody.